This is CNN Breaking News.
And we are following some more breaking news out of Ukraine. President Zelensky says a Russian missile hit near where he and the Greek prime minister were meeting in Odessa on the Black Sea. Zelensky says people were killed and injured in that attack. And CNN's Fred Pleitgen joins me now. Fred, what more can you tell us?
Hi there, Jim. Well, it certainly looks like it might have been a close call there for the Ukrainian president and actually also the Greek prime minister. It's not clear whether or not the Ukrainian president, Volodymyr Zelensky, was actually the target of what apparently took place there, which seems to have been a missile strike by the Russians near the port or inside the port of Odessa. It was quite interesting to hear the Ukrainian president say that they not only heard an explosion, but he says that they also saw the missile as it was coming down, which of course seems to indicate that both him and the Prime Minister of Greece were quite close to that explosion that took place. I want to listen in to what Volodymyr Zelensky had to say later at a press conference. Let's listen in.
We saw this strike today. You can see who we are dealing with. They don't care where they strike. I know that there are victims today. I don't know all the details yet, but I know that there are dead and wounded. We need to defend ourselves first and foremost. The best way to do that is with an air defense system.
And Jim, the Ukrainian president there saying that there were dead and wounded. The Ukrainian authorities, the Ukrainian Navy now coming out and saying that there were 5 people who were killed and further people who were wounded in that strike. And some new information that we literally just got a couple of minutes ago actually coming from the Russians. They claim that near that port facility that they struck what they said was a warehouse containing unmanned sea drones from the Ukrainians. Again, impossible to confirm whether or not that was really the case, but definitely appears as though it could have been a close call there for the Ukrainian president, Jim.
Absolutely. I mean, that would have been extraordinary had things turned out differently here. Glad that the president is okay. Fred Pleitgen, thank you very much. Joining me now to discuss, CNN national security analyst and former deputy director of national intelligence, Beth Sander, and CNN military analyst, retired Air Force Colonel Cedric Leighton. Beth, let me start with you first. I mean, this, as Fred was saying just a few moments ago, this was an extremely close call. And according to the Ukrainians, this Russian strike not only potentially could have taken out the Russian president, but the Greek prime minister. I mean, can you imagine if something like that had occurred? Just extraordinary.
Yeah, it is absolutely extraordinary. And it's interesting what this might mean in terms of really galvanizing even more the European support for this war effort. You know, this attack, I mean, obviously the Russians knew he was there. They knew Zelensky was there, and they did it on purpose. And I don't want to steal Cedric's thunder here, but what Fred just said about attacking the warehouse with the unmanned sea drones, it does seem to me that this is in retaliation, perhaps, for the sinking of that Russian warship yesterday, the patrol ship that was only a year and a half old and has cruise missiles and is part of what is the force in the Black Sea that is continuing this raining down these missiles on Odessa and across Ukraine.
Yeah, Colonel Leighton, what do you think? I mean, the other question that I had in the back of my mind as I was digesting this news this morning is whether or not the Russians have the ability to track Zelensky's movements with this kind of precision, because it sounds like this was fairly close.
Yeah, I think so, Jim. And, you know, we certainly have to think of the possibility that the Russians are tracking Zelensky's movements. This, you know, according to some reports at least, you know, as Beth indicated, was about 150 meters or so away from Zelensky's convoy. That's pretty darn close. You know, if they were also looking at going after the sea drones, as Beth mentioned, that, of course, is a military target and, you know, is, you know, clearly within, you know, some of the parameters that the Russians have set for themselves and would be of military interest to them. But they also, of course, have always wanted to do something that would decapitate, in essence, the Ukrainian regime. And this would be one way in which they could do that. Of course, that they also had the Greek Prime Minister Mitsotakis visiting at the same time. That might have complicated things if something bad had happened. In addition to what already occurred. But this is clearly a Russian effort to go after the leadership. Very distinct possibility of that. And there's also the chance, of course, that they were going after a military target in this particular case.
And Beth, it's impossible to not put this in the political context this morning. I mean, this morning we had Nikki Haley dropping out of the presidential race, but at the same time saying that aid to Ukraine is essential, and that's what her supporters want to see happen. Obviously, Donald Trump feels differently about a lot of this. He has other plans for Ukraine and Russia. How big of an issue is this issue now of Congress passing aid for Ukraine with Donald Trump all but guaranteed to be the Republican nominee come November?
Yeah, I think that this is, it is getting to the point where we are on the verge here of Ukraine really potentially having the tables turned completely on them. And it is just unconscionable to me that the U.S. Congress is not doing what they're supposed to do. I mean, put it on the floor and debate it and vote on it, right? Isn't that what democracy is all about? Just vote on it. And let's see where the votes come down. But I mean, we're at the point now where Ukraine cannot defend itself. And they're almost out of air defense missiles in many cases. And certainly they are rationing their ammunition. And it's why they're losing territory. So I think I also just want to take a second and remind people that it's not $60 billion for Ukraine, that package. Only $14 billion of it is actually for Ukrainian arms. Another $20 billion is just going straight to U.S. manufacturers, along with that $14 billion. But that $20 billion is just going to go back into the U.S. stockpile. So these votes also aren't just about Ukraine. It's also about America and about America's safety and about American jobs. And I think that is really what Republicans should focus on, as well as doing the right thing for Ukraine and for the U.S. reputation in the world, which Haley really doubled down on today.
Yeah. We have to go. I apologize, Colonel Leighton. I do want to get your take on all of that. We'll do it next time. We'll have you back. We're going to talk about this Ukrainian issue tomorrow. Beth Sander, Colonel Leighton, thanks to both of you. A lot of breaking news this morning. Really appreciate both of you taking time for us.